Do you want to know your English level? Let's find out because I want to test your fluency. And the way that we're going to do this is with some just keyword sentence transformations. And this is a great exercise in which I want you to use both your grammar skills as well as your knowledge of vocabulary and thinking about different words and phrases. Because basically, I'm going to give you a sentence and I want you to change it and create a second sentence that has the same meaning. And of course, this is interactive English. I want you to participate. Write your answers in the comments, in the chat. I just love hearing from you. And of course, if you would like to get and access these lesson notes, click on the link in the description. You can join our email community. If you are already a part of the community, check your inbox. I will send them to you. So let's start. Let's just get the ball rolling and begin with this first one. So I am, going to be this, this is an informal test. I'll say that. All right. This is not like some official test, but I'm giving you a range of questions that are probably from a variety of levels. Some are going to be much easier than others. So we'll start off maybe a little slower, and then it's going to get increasingly more difficult. So the school is behind the office buildings. I want you to change the sentence, use the word of, and I'm giving you the start of the sentence now, the office buildings. What would you say? Now, when it comes to these sentence transformations, try to be as exact as you can. So really think about the grammar, think about the verb tense that you're using. Also, we're going to get into some of the vocabulary a little bit later. The school is behind the office buildings. The office buildings, what do you think? So, see, all right, some excellent answers, perfect. So I've basically just switched it around. The school is behind the office buildings. So I could say the office buildings, think about the subject-verb agreement. You need that verb in there. The school is, the office buildings are in front of the school. The office buildings are in front of the school. So I think for the most part, you know these directions behind, in front of. But I tried to get a little tricky with that subject-verb agreement. The school is singular, office buildings is plural. The school is, the office buildings are. Thank you guys, excellent. Going to give some shout outs as I go through this. Lali, Takayo, good to see you. Suma, perfect. So the next one, we're just going to move right through these because I have quite a few. My grandfather built the house. I want you to create another sentence, use the word by, and the beginning of the sentence is going to be the house. My grandfather built the house. Another way of saying this, so that it has the exact same meaning, would be changing it to what type of lesson? What type of sentence? Not what type of lesson. What type of sentence? What do you think? I'll give you a moment because, of course, in this case, I'm asking you to write something. It takes a little longer, but if you're watching this later, participate. Write it in the comments. Love hearing from you guys. I love how Julia said, easy peasy lemon squeezy. My little girl says that all the time. I love it. So we're talking about changing a sentence from active to passive. You see that keyword by, that is a hint. So we're making it passive, in which case we're going to use the verb to be followed by the past participle by the actor. The house was built by my grandfather. All right, the house was built by my grandfather. Great job, Rafaela, perfect. Venera, you guys are rocking this. So I told you we're starting a little easier, and then it'll get a little more challenging. But just because I like to add a few things, add some information in there, When to use the passive? This is a question that I often get because I think changing from active to passive, most people can think about the grammar structure and understand it, but there are specific times when you would want to use the passive. Overwhelmingly, you're going to use the active voice. But if you want to emphasize the action over the actor, like our example sentence, that would be a time when you'd use the passive. The house was built by my grandfather. We're emphasizing the action. If you want to avoid identifying the actor, like mistakes were made. So maybe my grandfather built the house. He made some mistakes, but he doesn't want to admit it. It's just, mistakes were made. And you want to avoid identifying the actor. You describe a situation in which the actor is unknown. You don't know who it is. My wallet was stolen. So I'm not going to say my wallet was stolen by someone. I don't know who it is. I would just drop it and say my wallet is stolen. Or if you want to have a firm tone, like this example, you travel somewhere and they say photos are not allowed. These are just some quick examples as to when you would use the passive voice, or when it's appropriate to use the passive. How about this one? Very quick sentence. I disagree. Instead of saying I disagree, I want you to use the word differ and complete the next statement. Any of you have taken my speaking course, I feel like you'll get this one because we do some debates and talk about introducing your opinion, disagreeing with people. But what could you use to complete? You're saying the same thing. Instead of saying I disagree, you would say this phrase instead. I think it's not as commonly used, of course, as disagree, but I do think it's appropriate. It's polite. It's a little more formal. It's a great way to disagree. Maybe you don't know the person and you don't want to be too aggressive. I disagree. So in this case, I'm giving you differ, but you really need to think about the verb that you're going to use, which is beg. I beg to differ. Great job, Talal, Angela. Excellent. Rafaela, I knew you would get that. I beg to differ. So instead of saying I disagree, and again, we're in a meeting, I want to be a little more polite. I'm going to say, look, I beg to differ. I have a different opinion. I beg to differ. Then we have this question right here. I can't wait to go on vacation. It's not really a question. Again, we're just changing these sentences and really testing both your grammar and vocabulary. I can't wait to go on vacation. I want you to use the word forward. That is our key word. And you're going to start out the sentence, I'm really on vacation. This, I believe, is another phrase that I think most of you are probably familiar with. You've heard of it. And I think it's a very common phrase, but just keep in mind the grammar when you're constructing this. I can't wait to go on vacation. I'm really what? Because there is a common mistake that I hear or I see when it comes to this phrase. Once again, I know you're writing it right fast. I would say try to be as specific as possible. In order, you want to, with these keyword transformations, you got to get all of the words, or try to get all of them. I can't wait to go on vacation. So the phrase that I was talking about is to look forward to something. And if we want to put that into the sentence, I'm really looking forward to going on vacation. Looking forward to going on vacation. So let's see. I have some good answers. One thing, again, I see this is when people make small mistakes where you look forward to something and people, you have that to, and they think infinitive. So instead of look forward to go, keep in mind, you look forward to doing something. You're going to follow it with the gerund, that ing. I look forward to going on vacation. I look forward to having a picnic in the park. I look forward to meeting your parents, something like that. I don't. These are just examples, but you can hear that, or you can hear that ing, going, meeting, playing. So keep that in mind. You look forward to doing something. If you enjoy these lessons, again, I'd ask you, please subscribe, turn on those notifications. That way I can become your teacher. I didn't introduce myself at the beginning, so I will right now. My name is Wes. The channel is Interactive English. It's all about trying to help you reach your fluency goals. And the way that I want to do that right now is with this fluency test. Here is the next transformation. My colleague sometimes gets on my nerves. I'll go ahead and tell you, I think you know, but if someone gets on your nerves, it's just somebody who annoys you, bothers you. I want you to change that and use the word knack. My colleague, on my nerves. So this is when vocabulary really comes into play, because there is a specific phrase that you would need to be familiar with so that you can complete this sentence. My colleague, on my nerves. As we go through this, try to, if you can, keep track as to how many you got correct, how many were incorrect. There is a total of 14 that we're going to look at. So my colleague, on my nerves. I see a good answer. All right. One close, and with these prepositions. So my colleague, when we're talking about neck, we're going to use the verb have. You have a knack. Colleague is singular. My colleague has. So instead, string them up, not have a knack. My colleague has a knack for something. Has a knack for following it with the gerund, has a knack for getting on my nerves. My colleague has a knack for getting on my nerves. So this is when it really becomes, I think, a lot trickier. Knowing the phrase that a knack for something, the ability. We're going to use that with have, and then follow it with for plus the gerund. You have a knack for something. Then we have, what do you think about this one? Oh, just to give you a quick comment, because I know I saw in there like a knack of. It is okay. Generally, you're going to follow this with the preposition for. I think that is more common. You may hear people talk about a knack of. So if you said a knack of, I think that's my colleague has a knack of getting on my nerves. That works. That's perfect. I saw that. I think Takayo, excellent. Some people had put on, that would not work. You would say a knack for doing something or a knack of doing something. To give you a little more context, you can see these news headlines right here, and all of them use for. English instructor who stumbled on her knack for translation. Or Alexander Calder, the artist with a hidden knack for design. And then finally, making meth, how New Zealand's knack for pee turned into a home-baked disaster. And I think in this context down there, P is another informal name for meth. All right. This is, I'd look this up. Not that I really know this by any means. So to give you a little more context with knack, but it's a nice phrase. You have a knack for something. You are skilled at doing this thing. How about this one? Would you like to watch Netflix? A very simple, basic question. I want you to come up with another question using the word feel, and I've given you part of it already. Do you Netflix? This, I think, is a little easier. I think probably most of you can change this. Once again, even with these simple ones, keep in mind the grammar. This is when you want to pay a little closer attention to that, because technically speaking, if even like part of it was wrong, like the conjugation, or it should be in the past tense, if this were an exam, I think I would have to mark it wrong. Sorry, I'm going to be very, very nitpicky with these responses. So, would you like to not? Would you like to watch Netflix? Sorry, I can't speak today. Do you feel like doing something? So in this case, we're going to use the gerund watching. Do you feel like watching? Excellent, Stanley, Alicia, Takaya, Rafaela, Lolly, Angela, Talal. Do you feel like watching Netflix? Perfect. I think you guys rock that one. Now it's definitely gonna start to get a little more difficult. So she rarely gets less than 70% on her English exam. I'm giving you the word rare. That is our key word. And the sentence, that's our blank. There are several words missing. Get less than 70% on her English exam. What would you fill in there? What are the missing words using the word rare that has the same meaning as the original sentence? She rarely gets less than 70% on her English exam. Write your answers in the chat, in the comments. I want you to participate, or if you're writing it down on a separate piece of paper, that is okay as well. But that is what these lessons are all about, to kind of engage with the lesson. This is active learning, not passive learning. So if we want to use rare, I would start out the sentence, it is rare. Saying something, it is rare, and then you could talk about a lot of different things. It is rare, we're going to follow that with the preposition for, and then her, but keep in mind, we need that infinitive. It is rare for her to get less than 70% on her English exam. All right, it is rare for her to get less than 70% on her English exam. Well done, Rafaela, Lolly, Suma, nice. Just trying to throw some shout outs whenever I can. One thing I want to keep in mind, I used on her English exam. This is when English can get a little tricky with some of these prepositions because sometimes there's more than one. We talked about a knack for something, a knack of. And if I said in her English exam, that would be okay. Probably I would use on. I think in the United States, which is where I'm from, that would be more commonly used. I'm not sure if in would be more British English, but just to show you a quick resource, if you're ever wondering, okay, you have these two phrases, and you think, well, which one's more appropriate? Which is more commonly used? You can use Ngram Viewer. Just type in Ngram Viewer in a search, and this will show you the frequency of different words and phrases. So I just put in on her exam, in her exam, and you can see that the usage is pretty similar. And basically, Ngram Viewer is taking a collection of written English, whether it's academic or an informal blog, and just puts it on that chart so that you can get an idea as to which one is more commonly used. So I wanted to point that out, especially with these prepositions, because it's not always, well, this is right, this is wrong. Sometimes it is the case, but it can also be that there is more than one that you can use, but one may be more commonly used. Okay, sorry for that. That was a little detour that we took, wanting you to show you that resource. The next one, he thought that the music was too loud. And then I want you to create another sentence using far as the music was too loud. This is kind of true in my case. I think late at night, out in the courtyard, across the building, there's always like some music playing or people outside talking. It's kind of a dormitory, and it can be loud. They have play music, and this is what I would say. You know, I thought that the music was too loud. But the next part, one of the key words is as, because we're kind of bringing up the next part of the sentence, the music was too loud. So you know that first part is really introducing your opinion. And what phrase could you use to introduce your opinion as, and then we're going to use far. As far what? Again, like I think some of you are very close. We're not going to use thought in this case. You're going to use concerned. As far as I'm concerned is a phrase if I were introducing my opinion. But in this case, we're talking about he. So the subject is he. As far as he was concerned, we're going to use it in the past as well. And these are like the small things. This is why I said it's really testing your grammar with these transformations, because I feel like people know, like, oh, as far as I'm concerned. But then you got to keep in mind, well, what is the subject? Are we talking about the past or the present? As far as he was concerned, the music was too loud. Because in our first sentence, he thought the music was too loud. This has happened in the past. So as far as he was concerned, the music was too loud. All right, excellent. Good job. Again, I see like some of those slight mistakes. Either people didn't use the word concerned. You got to keep that in mind because this is kind of a fixed phrase. But then others with that verb tense instead of is, was. How about this one? Once this contract is signed, this agreement, or once this contract is signed, this agreement is binding. Hopefully, as I talk about how specific I want you to be with your grammar, keep that in mind as we go through these other ones. Once this contract is signed, the agreement is binding. As soon as you, and then we end the sentence with agreement. But I want you to use the word by. As soon as you, what? As soon as you do what? I don't want to give too much of it away, but we're going to end the sentence with the word agreement. I think one thing you're going to have to change in here grammatically is that you have that the agreement is binding. We're not going to use that. We're going to change it to it's going to be the past participle, or in this case, like participle adjective. I'll just say it again. I know people are probably like writing or thinking about it. How can I use by? Once this contract is signed, this agreement is binding. As soon as you sign this contract, you are what? You are bound by the agreement. So this would be a way to express that. So instead of saying it's binding, you are bound by something. We're using the passive again. As soon as you sign the contract, you are bound by the agreement. Here we go. Let's keep moving on. I want to do some more. This one I think is a little easier, but also it can really be tricky because with some of these that I think are easier, people may make like very small mistakes, whether it's the wrong preposition or the wrong verb tense. I am tired, she said. I want you to use the word said and complete that sentence. She tired. Because you see these quotes right here, you know that we're talking about changing something from direct speech to indirect speech, or direct speech to reported speech. Now, you know that's the case, and I feel like you can change this sentence, but keep in mind like those small little details. I am tired, she said. She said that, all right, nice, excellent. Takaya, Julia, Alicia, Suma, all right, give some shout outs real quick. Tanisha, perfect. Rafaela, Lolly, okay, you guys right. She said that she was tired. I am tired, she said. She said that she was tired. This is a quick little graph that if you're wondering about, trying to be grammatically correct, you're changing from direct speech, the actual words a person says, which is why you see those quotation marks, to indirect speech, which is a description of what someone else said, the verb tense is going to change. So the question or the statement with direct speech was the present simple. I am tired. When we change that to indirect speech, we're then going to use the past simple. She said that she was tired. The present continuous, we change to the past continuous, past simple, past perfect, present perfect, past perfect. Will would change to would, and can, could. Something to keep in mind if you are changing from direct speech to indirect speech or reported speech. But I think you guys, for the most part, you guys nailed that. You rocked it. How about this one? And once again, vocabulary, I think, plays a larger role in getting this one correct. The police released the suspect because of new evidence. I want you to use the word light. The police released the suspect, new evidence. What phrase are we going to use so that the sentences have the same meaning? I told you this is more vocabulary related because you would really have to be able to come up with this specific phrase and pretty much know what it means. I imagine you probably have heard of it if you watch a lot of TV in English, movies, or read the newspapers or the news a lot in English, because you would come across this, I feel like, especially in this context of like crime. All right, you guys, again, rocked it. Pelagoya, sorry I mispronounced names. Angela, Takayo, Shirley. So the phrase that we're looking for, and again, make sure that you're using the right preposition, in light of new evidence. So the phrase that I'm talking about is in light of something. The police released the suspect in light of new evidence. That this new evidence came about, so the person was released in light of new evidence. One thing I'll point out with this one is that I got this is from Cambridge, in the light of something. It's an idiom. It means the same thing. So if you said in the light of new evidence, that's perfectly fine. I just want to highlight that it's a little more British English. I don't know if you can see it down there. It does say idiom. It says US in light of something. That is what I would say because I'm from the US, in light of new evidence. But in the UK, they may add that definite article in there, in the light of something. Again, just good to know. Either one is correct. They're both correct. How about this one? I have waited for an hour and he still hasn't come. I have waited for an hour and he still hasn't come. I want you to use the word sign and complete the sentence after an hour. There are quite a few missing words in this, and then we're going to end it with him. We're going to use a phrase that I think you, in this case, probably have heard of. You've come across it. You may even use it. And I think once I show you the answer, then you'd probably, oh yes, I know this. Or I think you'll probably just know, because that key word is, I think, a pretty big hint, sign. I have waited for an hour and he still hasn't come. After an hour, what? And we're going to end it with him. So there are quite a few words, again, and I would say try to see if you can get after an hour of doing what. So I've given you part of it. After an hour of doing something, we're going to follow it with the gerund. In this case, we're talking about waiting. After an hour of waiting, what happens? Now you can use that phrase, sign. So I have waited for an hour and he still hasn't come. It means the same thing. After waiting for an hour, there is still no sign of him. All right? He's still not here right now in the present. After waiting for an hour, there is still no sign of him. But again, I think you probably have heard that phrase, that construction, no sign of someone. There's no sign of someone. Here's another one, which I think is both, well, grammar and vocabulary, but you really have to be aware of a certain phrase. And now, again, this is getting a little more difficult. This is more challenging, of course. But some of these phrases I think are useful if you're able to build your vocabulary, if you hadn't heard of, well, in light of something, like because of, or there's no sign of someone that they're not around. Or in this case, my friend told me nothing about the surprise party. I want you to use the word dark. There is a specific phrase in this context. My friend, surprise party. So I think you've probably, again, familiar, you've heard the expression before using dark, but then you got to fill in the pieces around it. Think about the verb. Is it the present tense? Is it the past tense? I will say, I think, in the dark. All right, we're talking about in the dark, but what verb are you going to use with that? You would someone in the dark. A collocation would be to keep someone in the dark. Now, this is in the past tense, so we're also going to use the other one in the past tense. My friend kept, who? Kept me in the dark about the surprise party. You would keep someone in the dark about something. So hopefully, even before I show you the sentence, as I kind of talk through it, talk about the phrase, what verb is often used, it starts to make a bit more sense. To keep someone in the dark about the surprise party. Well done, Alan, Correde TV, excellent. All right, you guys, I think pretty much did pretty well on that one. How about this one? I apologize because I totally forgot about the meeting. I want you to use the word confess and complete the sentence. I must, and then end it with mind. End it with mind. This is another one where there's another phrase, which would be part of building your vocabulary, that is necessary. So I want you to use the word confess, but another key word in this would be that final word, mind. So you probably notice as we do some of these others that are more difficult, really you need to know some of the vocabulary, like if you're in the dark, you don't know about something, you're in light of, because of. And then as you build your vocabulary, I think in start to use these or recognize them, you'll see some of those words that go with them. For example, I mentioned you would keep someone in the dark is a common collocation with that phrase. So I apologize because I totally forgot about the meeting. So we're talking about forgetting something. I must, what? We're using confess. So basically that is going to be our main verb. I must confess. What? What about the meeting? You want to say that you forgot it. And in that case, you could say that it what? So I see Samantha. Nice. Lolly got the phrase. Ava, Julia. So we're talking about the phrase something slips your mind. If it slips your mind, then you forgot it. And if we want to complete this sentence grammatically, I must confess the meeting slipped my mind. Because we're talking about it already happened. You forgot about the meeting. I must confess, the meeting just slipped my mind. There are other phrases that you could use. You could use it with adverbs, saying something just, it completely slipped my mind, or it totally slipped my mind. Or if somebody's asking you about something and you forgot, you could say, well, it must have slipped my mind. Well, I just didn't think about it. It must have slipped my mind. Those are some common phrases that you'll use with that expression, to slip one's mind. All right. This is just a little funny, entertaining thing. Also, kind of a good way to test your fluency as well with these jokes. This is a sign from, I guess, out in Austin, Texas somewhere. I would tell you my best ice pun, but it slipped my mind. Do you find this funny? But a pun is just a play on words. You're having fun with words. And they're supposed to be funny. So we're talking about an ice pun. and they would say it, but it slipped my mind. It's funny because you would slip on ice. It's very slippery. But in this case, we're saying like, well, I forgot. I would tell it to you, but I forgot. My best ice pun, it slipped my mind. Ha 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 ha. I didn't find it to be that funny, but I thought it was relevant in including this as another point of reference when it comes to using this phrase, but also just, testing to see if you got it as well. Here's the moment of truth. This is an informal test. This is just how I would kind of break it down. You can let me know how you did in the comments. If you just got, one correct or none of them, probably maybe A1, you're more of a beginner. 2 to 4 correct, I would say maybe at an A2 level. This is, again, the European framework, A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. Intermediate would be B1, B2, 5 to 7, maybe around the B1 level. 8 or 9 correct, B2. If you had 10 or 12 correct, then I'd say you're about C1, very highly, you're proficient. And then 13 or all of them correct, because there were 14 questions, then yes, you are C2, you are highly proficient. So based on this scale, which is very informal, mind you, what level are you? How did you guys do? You can just you can let me know the level in the chat, and that way I know kind of how many you got correct. But there were 14 of them. If this were an exam and I were grading it, you would really want to be specific with these and make sure that you're using the correct verb tense, those prepositions are correct, the infinitive, the gerund, you're using the expression in the right order or in the correct way. So let me know how you did in the comments. I love hearing from you. And don't worry too much about this exam, because I feel like for the most part, many of you who join these lessons are definitely more proficient to go through, to listen to the entire lesson in English and pick up on it. But this is kind of informally how I labeled them. Okay, Manuel, C1, Ava, C1, Suma, C2, nice. C3, wow. You got the bonus question, which I didn't even come up with. Lali, A1, no. So again, don't worry too much. This is just a fun way of practicing. Another way of, I guess, interacting with the language. I really like these sentence transformations because we're learning two different parts, or you're working on two different things. You're working on the grammar, you're working on the vocabulary, and really trying to think about this. If you do take an exam like the IELTS, I believe that this may be this may be a part of it, doing some of these sentence transformations. But I do want to thank all of you for joining me today. It's great to see you. Lali, as always, thanks for coming, participating in the lesson. Rafaela, great to see you. We'll see you soon. Takayo, thanks for joining me. A lot of people are part of the speaking course. I love seeing that. A lot of members. Great to have you. Suma, Angela, just trying to give some more shout outs. Anna Takara, I wanted to give you a shout out as well, another member. Atsuka, I'm going to have to wrap this up, of course. Julia, I hope that you found the lesson useful. I hope that you learned something new. That is always my goal with these lessons, that something is new and you can continue to improve, continue to build your vocabulary. Write to me in the comments if you have any thoughts, any questions. I love hearing from you. I hope that you have a wonderful day. If you want to get these notes, remember, click on that link down below in the description. You can join our email community. If you're already a part of it, check your inbox. The notes are on their way. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you very soon for another lesson.